We already developed a productive application in the beta phase already, and then at around 10:30 we have somebody from Cloudent who will introduce you to the Cloudent database as a service offering, which is also part in Bluemix. And around 11:30, Florian Georg, one of very motivated guy from the rational team, will show you a real-world example of auto-scaling in Bluemix. And in between, I will just fill the empty slots with additional information regarding Bluemix, cloudfoundry, and stuff. Okay, so this was a statement from one of our colleagues in the Innovation Center in Eningen. He just said that Bluemix is a platform as a service cloud based on cloudfoundry, employing enterprise-grade services enriched with IBM software and hosted at soft layer. So all the blue words I will explain in more detail during this 4-hour session. So first of all, I'll give you an overview about the differences between infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So if you go to the left-hand side, traditional and on-premise data centers, they host everything from networking, storage, servers, and so on, up to their application and data. So this means that operations team has to manage all that bottom layer, networking, storage, and servers. And in the infrastructure as a service offering, the cloud provider offers you networking, storage, service, and virtualization. This means what you actually get is an empty operating system which is running somewhere in the cloud and which you can access through network. So in my opinion, operating system in most cases is also part of this offering, but of course maybe you want to bring your own. But what is clear, you have to bring your own middleware and runtimes, and of course your data and your applications. And paradigm shift to platform as a service means actually that the runtime and the middleware is provided by the cloud provider. So middleware are databases, message queues, and similar services, and runtimes are basically application servers, either WebSphere or Tomcat Java-based application servers, or Node.js, Ruby on Rails, or PHP, Python, Go, or whatever. But what remains, you bring your data and your applications. And last layer is software as a service. This means that everything from the hardware up to the data and application is offered as a complete service. So prominent examples are, for example, Gmail. Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. So I was trying to find out who was the first platform as a service provider, and it seems that Google was the first one with a Google App Engine. The Google App Engine started with a JEE-compliant web container and provided auto-scaling and high SLAs. But currently this offering is first of all limited to Java, Python, PHP, and Go. Go is a language which Google invented. It compiles to machine code. It's a similar language like C, but has some sophisticated features. And the main thing is it's limited to Google's proprietary services. So you cannot use, for example, a MySQL or DB2 or Oracle or something in the Google App Engine. There, cloudfoundry fits in. So cloudfoundry is an open standard for building platform as a service clouds. And cloudfoundry was invented by Pivotal. Pivotal was the company behind, or is the company behind the Spring framework, and Pivotal has been bought by VMware. And now IBM is also in the cloudfoundry consortium. And actually what cloudfoundry brings is that on the top layer you see the middleware, the application runtimes, and this is open. This means you can install any runtime on top of cloudfoundry, from WebSphere, Tomcat, PHP, Node.js, Ruby, whatever you like. You can even develop your own runtime and provide that as a plugin to cloudfoundry. On the left-hand side, you see services. So there's a service integration interface in Cloud Foundry, which actually means that you can connect your applications to a huge set of services, and these services are either running directly in the platform cloud or can also be provided by other service providers. But Cloud Foundry takes the responsibility to link them together. And in Cloud Foundry terms, the linkage between application runtimes and services is called binding. And of course, Cloud Foundry is open. You can download it. You can build your own private clouds. You can build a micro cloud on your laptop if you like. You can download the VMware image with Cloud Foundry inside and you are up and running. And of course, for public clouds like Bluemix is one. So you can go to cloudfoundry.org and you find more information about that. So in the next slide. So only to give you an impression who is in Cloud Foundry, that's a screenshot from the Cloud Foundry Summit in San Francisco last month. And you see that the keynote sponsors are IBM, VMware, Rackspace, HP, EMC, Pivotal, and SAP. And there is another player which is local to Switzerland, it's Swisscom. And based on that slide, you can more or less guess what's going on in the future with Cloud Foundry. So that means in there will be cloud providers like IBM. And Swisscom currently is also building a Cloud Foundry-based cloud in Switzerland. VMware is building one, Rackspace of course. But others, they are in this consortium because they want to provide services. And of course, IBM provides also services in Cloud Foundry and Bluemix, which we will see later. But I think the most of these participants, they are in the Cloud Foundry consortium because they want to provide services and sell services through the platform as a service cloud based on Cloud Foundry. So in Cloud, as already said, you can have multiple languages and application frameworks and also multiple services. So the only requirement to provide a service to Cloud Foundry is the acceptance of a TCP connection at a certain port and a certain... And of course you can, as already said, provide it in public clouds and also in private clouds. You can do the hybrid model. You can run part of the applications in private clouds and parts in public clouds, and they do not have to be changed because all are sticking to the Cloud Foundry standard. So what I do now is I give you a brief overview of Bluemix. So if you are not registered to Bluemix, please sign up now, and you can use the Bluemix Days DACH promotion code if you like. I now switch to the Bluemix screen. Yeah, okay, everything up correctly. Everything starts with the dashboard. The dashboard means actually it shows you all services and all applications which are running in Bluemix. In the free account, you have, I think, 2 GB of main memory available, and I think up to 10 or 20 services. It's pretty much. So message here is that running a basic application in Bluemix is for free. You don't have to pay anything unless you need more main memory or you need additional services. So you can start your application in Bluemix, and once you are growing fast, you can easily scale up without changing anything. You have to change is to provide a credit card number, and from there on you get charged on the additional resources you consume. So let's start with creating an app. So what we have here are boilerplates. Boilerplates are composites of application runtimes and a set of services. And I'll show you the Java Web Startup boilerplate, which currently is a WebSphere Liberty Profile Application Server version 8.552. and it's automatically linked to data cache. Data cache is a distributed in-memory key-value store, which is based on WebSphere Extreme Scale. And the only thing what I have to do is to click on Create. Oh, sorry, I have to provide a value here. So let's simple test. So, and the fun thing here is you see under host, you see the host name. So that means once this application has been provisioned, it will be available on the web immediately. So I just do that now. So this is the application. It's only not running because it's now being started. You see these messages popping up here. Refresh. Give me a couple of seconds. Now it's running. So I click on the detail view of this application. What I see here is that it's already bound to a service. This is the distributed key value store. And what I do now is I see here routes. We will later learn what the route is, but basically it's the URL where your application is available. So that's just a simple test application. So I put in key and value 1 into that key value store. Let's do it with another key value pair. So let's see if that works. Recently they changed the user interface, so I'm not sure. I have to recheck. You should now see the key and values in the administration interface of this service. So that's the administration interface of that service. And it actually means that you also manage your services through a web interface. Sorry for that. I mute my telephone. Okay. So that was the demonstration of how to deploy a small application fast. And we will see a bit more in Bluemix later. So what I can show you here is the set of services and a set of application runtimes which are currently available. So these boilerplates, as already said, are there because you have an easy way of linking an application and the service together, and you start that, and it's also provisioned with a sample application. What we have here are runtimes. So runtimes means you can easily start here a WebSphere Liberty profile or a Node.js application server, Ruby on Rails. And here you can bring your own. That means since cloudfoundry is an open standard, the community is currently developing runtimes for cloudfoundry, and you can easily import them here, and we will see that later, how that works. There are services specialized for mobile applications. So that's, for example, a distributed NoSQL data store based on Cloudant. And here you have a service for developing push applications or push notifications to your mobile. You have specialized services for web and applications. So here is the already known data cache. We have some message queues. We have session cache and a lot of other services. In data management, we have a set of databases. So we have the CloudDB, which we will learn about at around 10:30. The SQLDB, that's based on IBM DB2. ClearDB is a managed MySQL offering, and I'll just give you an impression how that works. I'll just start this now. If I start a service, normally it asks me to find it to application, but I'm going unbound. I create it. You will also learn later how finding and starting a service actually works in cloudfoundry. That's the ClearDB. That's a DB as a service provider. And actually, we are now opening the web interface of that DB as a service. See here. That's my database. And the fun thing about this, you can create backups in the cloud. So the backups are stored to another persistent storage, and you don't have to care about backing this up. You can also schedule these backups automatically. And then you see here endpoint information. That means this MySQL database is actually a clustered database. And you have two instances running at the East Coast and one at the West Coast. They are still running on Amazon Web Services, but I think they will soon be migrating to SoftLayer. So you get, with one mouse click, you get a clustered MySQL database. And the other interesting thing is, I go back to the catalog. You see these lines here. So the bluish line means that this service comes from IBM, and IBM provides support. So with the additional fee, you get 24/7 support on these services. And this turquoise lines means that this is a service which is provided by an IBM business partner, and you get also support either through IBM or through the business partner. And there are services which have a gray line, and this means that they don't have any support. These are just one-to-one copies of open source community software. So this was ClearDB, the same as Elephant SQL. Elephant SQL is the same like ClearDB for PostgreSQL. So it's a third-party partner-provided offering for a clustered PostgreSQL database. The same for MongoLab. MongoDB, it's fully managed by MongoLab. You get professional support from MongoLab. And of course, you can use MongoDB without paying anything and without professional services. Another example, we have big data services. So you can ask yourself how long it takes to get a DB2 Blue data warehouse accelerator system running in your data center. And I assume you need at least 4 hours. And if you have to buy the license and sign the contracts, you will have more than a week or even a month. What we do here now is we create the DB2 Blue in cloudfoundry, and it takes 3, 4, 5 seconds, and we have our DB2 Blue database already up and running. And since it's a cloud database offering, we manage it through a web interface as well. I will show you now briefly. Provides the same functionality what you expect from an administrative console for a database. So you can design your database. That means you design the layout, the tables and table spaces, and you load the data. You can either load it from local or from other cloud providers like Amazon S3 or from other DB2 databases in the cloud. And there are other options as well, for example, Cloudant, which we will learn about it later. Within DB2 there is an accelerator for Cognos and for R, the statistical language, and also for Excel, so you can use it out of the box. Another example how to get started really fast is Hadoop Big Insights, the big data service. I've already started this, and since I'm only allowed to start one, I have to open it. So I click on the service and I open the user interface. Just to give you a little impression. So this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's a 6-node Hadoop cluster in Bluemix, which you get for free at the moment. I think up to 10 GB of space you can use there. And of course, soon there will be offerings where you pay a fee and you get even bigger clusters. Okay. So now I show you something else. I show you the DevOps. This means I go back to my slides. So there is a DevOps service in Bluemix. DevOps means development and operation. And when it is written like DevOps, it means that all is integrated. And we have our DevOps services on hub.jazz.net. You can register there for free. We'll just open up the UI for you. Yeah. Basically, it has a source control system. This is either based on Rational Team Concert or on Git. And when you're using Git, you can either use an internal Git repository of DevOps services, or you can connect your project to a GitHub project. So what I will show you now is how to deploy an application using the DevOps services. So what I do now is I go on this project, the Hello World project. This Hello World project is written in JavaScript running on an application framework called Node.js. So that actually brings JavaScript to the server. And that's a big hype at the moment because of Ajax development. A lot of development has been done in the browser. A lot of application logic has been implemented in browsers, and therefore the skill set of developers shifted to JavaScript, and they also wanted to use the same language and capabilities on the server side. So an application in cloudfoundry actually has two components. One is the application code, and one is a deployment descriptor called the manifest.yml. So you see here the code of this Hello World application in Node.js JavaScript. And the key thing what you have to see here is this vcap variable. So the way of passing information around to services and applications in cloudfoundry is to provide environment variables. And this application is starting and listening to a TCP port, but in order to know which TCP port it has to listen to, it reads out the port number out of this variable and then starts the server on this port. And the other thing which is needed is the manifest file. This actually tells the application about the amount of resources it can consume. These resources are bound through a container isolation system, which I will also explain later. But it is guaranteed that your application cannot consume more memory or CPU or I/O bandwidth as configured. So we provide 1 GB of disk and 128 megabyte of main memory. And the other thing, we tell the host name on which this application has to be available. Now the only thing which we have to do is we click on deploy. So we say deploy as application in Bluemix. And I hit deploy, and it takes a minute or so. In parallel, we should now be able to see this application in Bluemix. Yeah, here it is. So we get down the details. Then we see the root. Okay, so you haven't been automatically deployed. That's something which I will show you now. So I go back to close, close. It's here. So what I want to do now is to show you not only the development service but also the operation services in DevOps. So I'll go for the whole thing. So I save this. By the way, this editor is based on Eclipse Orion. That's a browser-based development environment. Pretty good for that. It's all implemented in JavaScript. So I can now click on Build and Deploy. And I can tell this DevOps services, whenever I do a check-in, it should be automatically deployed to Bluemix. This is done now. And now what I have to do, of course, I have to check in my changes. And the source control system is also integrated in the Bluemix DevOps services. So I click on the source control system. This is now based on Git. So I see my app.js has been changed. And I also see what has been changed already, everything in the browser. So I can go to South America and implement bug fixes in my holidays, so no more excuses. So I select this, and then I commit it. And since this is Git, I have to push all these changes to the repository, which I do now. And now we should see, go to Build and Deploy. Based on this commit, a new build will be deployed. So I have a pending state now. Just refresh. Pending. Let's see what happens in Bluemix. Here it is. Okay, so this works. Of course, maybe I don't want to deploy every grep somebody is implementing, so maybe I want to test it before, do automatic testing. And what I can do now, I can choose among different build tools like Maven, Arndt, and so on, create a grunt. And I can run unit tests on the new code. And the really cool thing, I can not only run unit tests, I can say, let's deploy it to Bluemix, but don't deploy it to production. Just deploy it to development. So in Bluemix, you can create spaces. And the spaces can have different SLAs and different prices and different quota. And you can also assign external domains which you have bought to different spaces. So what you can do, for example, on every commit, you can deploy your application to a development space and run integration tests automatically against it. And once they ran successfully, you deploy it to a test or to a production system. All in Bluemix without installing any tool. And this is a process which Facebook and Google are doing right now. So they are having multiple production releases per day. And using Bluemix and Bluemix DevOps services, you can do the same. Of course, in addition to the web interface, you can also connect Eclipse and Rational tools and augment this process with these tools as well. Okay, so now we have seen how to deploy an application directly from the DevOps services, but now we want to do it from scratch. So I delete what I've done and do it again. I cannot delete it because there is a folder. So try it again. So got rid of test I've done. So now let's create a little PHP application. So that's the smallest example I can give you. It contains only 2 files. So I create a new empty project, which I call PHP. And in that file, I create, first of all, the PHP file. The most simple PHP file which you can do is this one. So this should print a status page. And in addition to that, you need, as already said, the manifest file. And of course, I have prepared that before. So I go to my JazzHub account, and I have created a Hello World PHP project, and I just copy the contents of the manifest.yml file. Go back to the editor. So just a little explanation. So name, I can do whatever I like. This is the host. That means that's the URL under which the application is available. And now this build pack is an interesting thing because cloudfoundry is an open standard. A build pack is actually application runtime. We will see that later a bit in more detail. But the key thing is that everybody in the world can provide this build packs. And in this case, the PHP build has been provided by Pivotal. So we save that and we exit. Now we go to the command line. So that's the second possibility to deploy something to cloudfoundry is using the command line interface. And basically what we have to do is using CF. CF means cloudfoundry tool. Log in. And now we have to tell to which cloud we want to connect. So we have to log in. that's the only thing we have to do, CF and push, because push reads now, as you see here, the manifest file, so all information is stored there. It creates the root, that means it creates the map between the URL and the application. It uploads the files. Now the staging begins. I will explain later what staging means. So it gets the build pack, the PHP build pack. So staging completed. The result of the staging process is called a droplet. And this droplet actually is the runtime plus your source code. And this is now being published into a so-called container. But I'll explain this all later. So this was successful. That means if we now go to Bluemix and check our dashboard, there should be a PHP application up and running. This is the case. Let's see if that works. See, that's two-file application, which takes around 5 minutes to deploy to Bluemix. So, and the last thing, how to get stuff into Bluemix is using the Eclipse plugin. So I go. That's Eclipse Kepler release. That's I think the latest one. And what you do after you've installed Eclipse, you just go to Eclipse Marketplace. And then you type in Bluemix. Really easy. Now we see IBM Eclipse tools for Bluemix, and we can install these. And these are basically, it's a composite of the cloudfoundry plugin, and in addition it has also the WebSphere Liberty profile plugin, because you want to develop applications for WebSphere Liberty profile, you need this plugin as well. In addition to that, if you want to create applications for Liberty profile, you have to install the runtime. This is already done here. I just have to check. It doesn't show it to me. So if you wouldn't have installed the Liberty profile runtime, you can here installing it by clicking on Get it from the repository. So you don't have to go to IBM.com and register and download Liberty profile. All you have to do is click here, and the WebSphere Liberty profile runtime then gets installed automatically into your Eclipse environment. So what you see here, in the servers view, you get the Bluemix connections now, and you see all the applications which are running in your Bluemix account. So what I do now is a simple Hello World project in Java. So I create a new dynamic web project. Say hello. I think that's all what I have to do. Let's see. And the most easy way to say hello in JE is creating a servlet. So I create a servlet here. I call it say hello. And I think that's all. Finish. So I have to implement. So this is all annotation-based. That's the new standard. You don't have to provide a web.xml file anymore. And this servlet will be available at the URL say hello. And the host name, I will show you later how to set that. And we will answer a GET request. So what we do is print line. Bigger letters. Hello, and Dach. I save. So now it's pretty easy to add that to your Bluemix cloud and already run it and deploy it. So I just say add and remove. Say hello, add. So say hello is good as application name. Subdomain, to be sure that I'm unique here, I say hello RKIE. And I click on finish. What now happens is this application gets uploaded to Bluemix and gets staged, which I will explain later. And then the resulting droplet will be pushed to a runtime container. So you see, after this pushing and staging is successful, you see the output from the WebSphere Liberty profile directly in the console. So this is the WebSphere application server output, which gets directly streamed from the cloud to your console. And now it sets the server is ready to run a smarter planet. So let's see how smart it is. And we go to Bluemix dashboard, search for our application. Yeah. So we have defined that the URL, something like say hello, that's the servlet annotation, say hello. Okay, now we have a Java web application up and running in less than 5 minutes. Okay, so are there any questions so far to Bluemix soft layer, cloudfoundry? And maybe I give you a microphone because of the web session. Test, okay.
So Romeo, you showed as well the PHP example, and there we saw that the runtime is as well pushed to Bluemix.
Yes.
So I think there is a good example to show that in Bluemix are some runtime environments already included, but in the PHP example, Romeo showed now that it is possible to bring your own code, and with this PHP. So I think would there mainly be any runtime be possible on this environment?
Basically, yes. So it runs in a so-called container. I will explain that to you later. And these containers currently are running on top of Linux. They are making use of a kernel extension actually invented by Google, which is called C groups, and it's part of the official Linux kernel since version 2.6.14. And based on that, that's a system to isolate applications on the same server from each other. And so basically the message is as long as it runs on Linux, it runs also in cloudfoundry. And cloudfoundry is not limited to Linux. It could also be used in Windows, but I think the current offering in Bluemix is Linux-based.
Just one question more about C, C++, Python, and all that stuff. Is this also running on Bluemix?
Yes, there are build packs already there for C and Python and so on. And as already said, you could build your own build pack as well. But if you have a Python application, it's also 2 minutes and it's up and running.
Okay.
Another question to the PHP example which you showed actually. The program was very simple one, right?
Yes.
So, but what is if the program is more complex? It's kind of contains of a nested structure with includes and things like that. So how is that handled?
No problem. I can show you, but I won't show you too much because maybe then I get into IP problems. So currently our first, maybe I can mention this here. Our first client on Bluemix in the DACH region is this company here, and that's also the first application which is in production already now on Bluemix, and it's a PHP application. And that's also an example of how easy you can develop these applications together. Hopefully, because, here it is. I won't show you any source code because I'm violating IP then. But the basic idea is this whole application, which we see here, which contains of many PHP files, nested PHP files, includes and so on. This is running on Bluemix, so it doesn't matter how big it is.
Second question, so if you change your code afterwards, after this being deployed, I got the impression that the deployment is quite complex in the PHP case because, the whole build pack has been assembled together. So if I change my application afterwards and I have to redeploy it, is the things that are going on, is that the same or is it different if I do a redeployment?
So the process is also always that you stage the application and you create a droplet.
Everything is staged together then?
Yes.
And my last question is, this is now, being you as a developer, but what if the application which needs to be created is a team spirit? So multiple developers have to provide code to that application. How would you do that in Bluemix?
Yeah. So I show you the example in DevOps services, but it's also the same if you use it in Eclipse. So what you can do is, I click on Edit Code. And of course, I do check-ins. So I can either decide that always the checked-in version will be up and running, but since I'm in Bluemix, I can also decide, maybe I have to configure that, but I will just check whether it's also being picked up here. Yes, see. So these are colleagues or clients which I'm supporting. So I can choose the Bluemix account, and in addition to that, I can also choose the environment. So based on that possibilities, I can easily define a process in working together. So most likely, I use my private development for testing, and once I'm ready, I push it to the repository and have it, for example, automatically deployed to a public shared space, and everybody can test the latest version there. So that's the continuous integration approach. Okay.
So now you just showed us you have a development and a test space. Of course, we are seeing now the birth of the applications in the cloud, but we also want to then run it in the cloud, of course, the production environment.
Yes.
So is this also considered to be then running in the Bluemix environment?
Yeah. So
and how does that then look like from an operational point of view?
So I think I can show you this because there's nothing confidential inside here. So they are still running in the development space, but that doesn't matter because the SLAs at the moment are the same in every space. But the thing is then, from an operations point of view, we have defined that this URL is hooked against the development space of that account. Therefore, that means if you issue an HTTP request and send the host name, which is shown here in the request header, this request gets routed to your productive application. That's the way how this is defined. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I was just curious because currently we are focusing on development, but I mean, we will more and more then move also into production characteristics because more and more applications that have been created will also be running on the same instance then.
Exactly.
Correct.
And one word to operations and production, what you can always do with any runtime, I have to just search. So I won't mention autoscaling here because we have a dedicated talk later, which is a really good talk, so I don't want to tell anything before that. But you can, for example, click on Monitor and Analytics. But maybe I do that not in our client space. Okay. And you can hook this Monitor and Analytics node, which is actually for free, to an application, and then you get statistics about the application. There are also other services inside Bluemix to create load on your application. And, so it's a all-in-one runtime environment for development and production and also for testing. Other questions in the audience here in Zurich?
How do you link services together? So, for example, we had the PHP application, but I want to do a DB2 request out of that PHP application.
Yeah.
How would I do that?
I show it to you now how it works in the interface. You can do that in Eclipse and on the command line. And how it works in cloudfoundry exactly, I can also show you later. I have the slides ready for that. Let's go to our Say Hello application. So I now say bind an existing service. Now I see all my services which are running in my space, and this is the DB2 Blue. And I say OK. And the container containing the droplet and my application has to be restarted. And from now on, I have an environment variable ready to use, which is called vcap_services, and that contains a string in a JSON format, which I will show you right now. So this is the JSON string, and from here you get username, port, password, URL, and so on. And this information you can read and then use to create a data source, for example, in the Liberty profile case. Any other questions from the audience here, Zurich? No? Anybody on the phone line having a question so far? I have muted them. Can somebody on the phone please say something?
Yes, we're still here.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so I think that's the perfect point to hand over to Michael, because now he will show you a real-world live experience demo Bluemix.